Hey everybody, Dr. Rick dropping in on you again. By now, some of you have had the opportunity to check out the video I posted concerning the preliminary thoughts behind Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp all crashing. Of course, Facebook owns all of those companies, and it's supposedly on a shared server, which would be foolish. But I gave my opinion on that, and so I'm dropping in now to talk about something that always seems to get under my skin, and you would think by now it wouldn't, but you know, I guess everybody has that one person that they look at and it just really truly represents everything that they despise, and that person for me is Stephen A. Smith. So I want to talk about what's going on with him lately. It's always something, and it's always something that's in some way diametrically opposed to black progress, black empowerment, and the right for black people to be heard. Before I get to that, I want to remind you guys again that we need your support. Show your love, support the work we do. The link will be in the description box. Also, if you want to sponsor a space in my latest book, my 25th book, to be precise, you want to sponsor space in that so that you can pay tribute to someone in that book that will be published by the end of this year. Now's the time to do it. The information to do that is also in the description box. All right, let's talk. Well, as you know, New York, well, maybe you don't, but for those of you who aren't like completely separated or disconnected from what's going on social media and what's going on in the media and the news and everything else, New York has taken some very strong stances. As a state and New York, the city, have taken some very strong stances on vaccination, and they have issued mandates for certain things. One of the things impacts the professional sports that are played in the area, and the way that it's set up, basically keeping it simple, the way it's set up is if a player isn't vaccinated, they can't play in a game in New York City. Whether it's the home team or the visiting team, they will not allowed to play. They will not be allowed to play. Okay, now the reason this is huge is because one of the premier players in the league, Kyrie Irving, a very integral part of the Brooklyn Nets, a key component, his absence, many feel, is the reason why the Nets were eliminated by the Milwaukee Bucks. Taking nothing away from Giannis and what the Bucks did, they did an extraordinary job. But KD darn near got them there without Kyrie, and most people feel if they would have been full strength, they would have won. That's the consensus. My grandfather say, if an elephant had a wing, if an elephant had wings, it'd be a hell of a bird in the air. If it's a big word, so it really don't mean a whole lot, because if didn't happen, it doesn't matter. Some of the old cats in the hood used to say if was a fifth, everybody'd be drunk. Again, if is this, but that's not why I'm here. The reason is Kyrie has taken a stance that he's not going to be vaccinated. He's given his reasons why, and he's standing on it, and that's what's going on with that. Now, obviously, I can't get into any conversations about the particulars about shots and all that stuff, so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a person's right to choose. And what Stephen A. Smith done. Stephen A. Smith is basically, low case lobbying for Kyrie to be traded away from the Nets. Now, and he uses a logic that on the surface for the average person might seem logical. The logic behind it is, well, if you're not going to be able to play but half the games for your team, and that's the games away, and that's assuming that the arenas you're playing at don't have the same stipulations as your home team, because you can't play at home because you're not vaccinated. So you can't play in New York. That also means you can't play in games where you play against the New York Knicks, which is, again, in the same city. So that's other games you'll miss. So the whole thing is, you got a player that you can't get to play in half your games, and it's going to really come to heel when it ends the playoffs. I get all that, and on the surface, it makes sense if you're only looking at it from that perspective. But we're not just looking at that from that perspective. Athletes aren't machines. Athletes are human beings. Athletes are beginning to learn their value, and they'll begin to leverage their value, and they'll begin to make demands that are making some very rich white folks uncomfortable. Because, you see, the athletes are the product. The athletes are what's valuable. The athletes are what people actually pay to come see. If the athletes decide to pull the quality off the shelf and leave the product lacking, then the money starts lacking. Nobody's going to pay top dollar and not have top shelf. So what happens is Kyrie is testing the water. Now, the reason I say that I don't like Stephen A's argument, and I don't like the way you got to understand his role. His role is they pay him $11 million a year, whatever it is. It's some crazy astronomical price that he actually gets paid more than the vast majority of the athletes that he covers to sit up and talk about them. And the only reason he's there is because he wasn't good enough to make it himself. And don't get me wrong, I'm not crapping on anybody because they didn't make it to the league. Only 1% or so make it, who aspire to make it. That's not it. But my thing is, you are critiquing people who were good enough to make it, and you're superimposing your ideologies and the ideologies of your bosses into their lives, into their decisions, how they move. He stayed on Allen Iverson about braids and about tattoos and about everything else, wanting to be what they wanted him to be, what they think is, and anybody who knows anything about me knows how I feel about the Eurocentric idea. The Eurocentric idea is this notion that everything that matters is based on the European idea of. So, for instance, beauty is based on the Eurocentric idea of what's beautiful. The Eurocentric idea of what's classy, the Eurocentric idea of what's professional, the Eurocentric idea of whatever. And the thing is, as long as you're not harming anybody, as long as you're doing things above board, your presentation is your business. I have a way that I present myself, and that's the way I'm comfortable, and that's the way I move. And it's a lot of people, I make a lot of people uncomfortable because of who I am and how I operate and what I do for a living. It puts me in spaces where people like me make people uncomfortable. You are an educated person, but you got all these tattoos and you got a beard or a goatee right now. You're always in hoodies and caps. I actually had a black person come on Saturday's show with Dr. Blanchard, the teacher show with Dr. Blanchard, and accused both of us of not being doctors because Dr. Blanchard was in his t-shirt and I was in my hoodie. Well, Dr. Blanchard gets dressed to the T because, he's still in that environment. He works in an administrative position for a school district. And so he has to show up for work dressed based on protocol. And that's something he and I discuss all the time is, man, I'll be glad when I get off this plantation so I can just be me. I'm like, yeah, that comes with some challenge. I tell everybody, it's good. We talk all that about being your own boss, but it comes with a lot of challenges and you better be built for it. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So Stephen A is brought on and paid to keep everybody in line, to push narratives, to try to influence public perspective and to minimize the impact of what some athletes are determining they're going to do with their bullet pulpit. And so he comes on and his idea, okay, he should be traded. Well, here's the problem with that. As a black man, my voice would be, instead of saying he should be traded, why not we stand up and push the narrative that he has a right to make that decision? Why not we ask the question, if everybody is vaccinated, is protected, why should he not be matter? Why not we ask those questions? Why not we stand behind him? Why not we look for a way to allow him to make his choice and not be punished for choosing? And I think people really have lost sight of the severity of what we're talking about. We're talking about a person making a decision about their body. Now, everybody wants to talk about a woman's right to choose. Now, getting off into that. But I'm like, okay, if we're going to have that, and that's going to be the state, and I'm not one to tell a woman what to do with her body. I have my beliefs about certain things, but it's not my body. So, you know, I try to choose to be with a woman who thinks the way I think, so we never have to deal with that. But I can't tell a woman what to do with her body. It's not mine. You know, now I have some strong convictions on it, but I'm not going to do it. That's why I found a woman who thinks like me. So that's never going to be, and I've always tried to be that way. Look, you know, how are you on this area? You know, because it matters to me. But again, if we're going to say that a woman has a right to choose, then every human has a right to choose what's going on with their body. Nobody has a right to force them. Now, again, you can say, okay, places have a right to make rules based on what they believe. And I do. I think that this needs to play out in a court of law. I think that he needs to say he has a right. I think it needs to be brought to him. I think a lot of stuff that we're talking about anecdotally, a lot of stuff that we're talking about, you know, back and forth on, so I think that needs to go in the court of law. I think some of the things need to be laid on the table. I think some of the arguments and research and studies and all that stuff needs to be viewed. And then I think we need to be able to sit up with a rational mind and say, okay, if this is this, this is this, this and this, why is this? And if so, what are we going to do about it? And actually be up there instead of all of the media manipulation, all of the censorship, all of the things that are going on that create trust issues in the first place. And what gets me is the people who act like people are overreacting as if all kind of medical apartheid hasn't taken place. You know, I mean, that can literally be recalled. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. I'm not talking about what ifs and if this might have. I'm talking about what's been documented, what's been known, what has actually been acknowledged by the dirty dogs that did it. That's enough in and of itself to sit up and say, shoot, man, I don't know. And then when a person says that they shouldn't be treated, I mean, like, my whole thing is, sometimes you got to make decisions and stand on it. Now, if it means that the brother doesn't play, then it means the brother doesn't play. But I don't think, as a black man, I want to be the man that's standing up saying, trade him. And the thing is, Stephen A. has enough sense to know how Kyrie is. And the chances are, if Kyrie gets his hand forced like that, he'll probably just walk away from basketball. He doesn't need it, you know. And so he'll probably just walk away from basketball. And I think that's actually what they want to do. They want to force him out without forcing him out. They want to sit up and say, okay, we didn't ostracize you or blackball you. We traded you. We gave you a chance to be in the league at a place where you could actually play, and you walked away. But the truth of the matter is, you knew when you traded him, he was going to walk away. So you did. You forced him out in the most subtle and clandestine way that you possibly could. But my thing is, I can't stand to see black men tearing down other black men for the sake of white men. Let me say that again. I can't stand to see black men tearing down other black men for the sake of white men. Because that's all it is. That's a black man pushing the white narrative. And what have I always told you guys? That the greatest threat to black progress is a black face with a white agenda. That's Stephen A. Smith to the freaking core. I just had to bring that out. That was just on my mind. Look, I'm going to get off of here, and I'm going to get in here and do what I got to do. I'm arriving at the gym. I've had a pretty long day. Damn near 5 o'clock. Been up since 5. And just getting to the gym. Day still going. But you guys have an unbelievable day, and I'm out of here.